Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to our Monday night class. So wherever you are when you're getting it, maybe Monday morning or Tuesday morning or wherever, or if you're watching on YouTube, it could be any time. But you're all welcome to be here. We're going to start with the four great vows. Please put your palms together and bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Today, we're going to talk about a particular sutra that is, go back to the name of it, the Noble Great Vehicle Sutra, called the Good Eon. And this sutra came into China around 300 CE. And it was translated a few times in Chinese, and once was translated by the very well-known translator Kumarajiva. Unfortunately, that particular translation was lost somewhere along the lines. The one that I'm reading from was then translated in Tibetan, and from the Tibetan script then comes this English translation of this sutra. But the sutra's been around for quite a long time, and it is a Mahayana sutra. The term good eon is an important term because it reflects that what we call an eon, also referred to as a kalpa, is a good eon is when the Buddha appears somewhere during that eon. And say, if he appears in an eon at some place, that's pretty good, because sometimes it's very difficult to have a Buddha appearing in all places. So it is auspicious for that to happen. And at the last retreat I was at, I was talking about the child radiance, and the Buddha predicted the child radiance was going to go, and he had already predicted that he was going to go in the future to a place that hadn't had a Buddha appear for a long time, but they had been asking for a Buddha to appear so that they could listen to the Dharma and get it closer to the source. So he would be doing that. So anytime that happens, that's a good eon, and that's important. It's kind of something very similar sometimes where for instance, in Dharma drum, they're spread so thin it's difficult to find or have enough people or monastics to go to different chapters to have somebody, but they're generally welcome with open arms, because at least they have a monastic, they have a sangha that's present. And so here we're very fortunate because we have sangha at the tap of our fingers. And if you don't can't get to this channel, you can get to other people's channels in terms of people that are presenting the Dharma. So you were in a very blessed age, plus the fact that 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha had appeared here. So the teachings are still exist in this world. So the reason I talk about things like that is because in these sutras, they're always talking about incalculable numbers, incalculable lengths of time or distances or worlds. And it's difficult for us to fathom that as a samsaric individual, because it's hard for us to try to figure out. To us, a billion is a lot, but not in terms of Buddha Dharma. Buddha Dharma, there can be a billion Buddhas appearing in 500 billion worlds, and to us we go, maybe like who's counting these, and who's doing this, and how could we possibly even do that, and who's going to keep track of all of this? Even in the sutra that I'm going to be reading, I'm going to skip a lot of the names of the Buddhas and the different bodhisattvas that were present in King, simply because they go on for pages of who was present, just to give you an idea of how incredible and how vast the Dharma realm is, and having all of these people come and to listen to this. So what we have here is one bodhisattva, and I don't know if Santha, you got the name of the bodhisattva. I don't really want to butcher his name. It's Pramodi Raja. Can you pronounce that?
One moment. So it's Pramodya. I think it's Pramodya Raja.
Pramodya Raja.
It's Pramodya Raja.
Pramodya Raja. Okay. This bodhisattva that is in a practice where he is sitting and not getting up, not eating. So he's fasting during this time period for a period of 7 days, that he's sitting there and not moving. And the people are kind of looking at him, and they're kind of concerned and saying, he hasn't moved, what's happening and what's going on with him. So you'd think somebody who could sit for 7 days, not eat, not get up, not use the restroom or whatever, their level is pretty high. But his level was high enough for him to realize that there were absorptions in the mind that were far beyond his ability, and that he then decides to ask the Buddha about these abilities. And that's kind of where we start. There's quite a bit of a lead up to that, but again, I'm going to kind of cut through some of this, because otherwise it would take too long to present the meat of what I want to present to you now. Not that the other part isn't meat, it's just that we need to go through and see all of the people who were present. And I'll give you an example. It says the Bodhisattva Pramodya Raja, who had also entered meditative seclusion, now likewise reemerged from his state, and he told the whole assembly of monks, nuns, male lay practitioners, female lay practitioners, gods, nagas, yakshas, Gandharvas, Ashuras, Garudas, Kinnaras, Maharajas were now seated on their mats, and and so this is including all of the other bodhisattvas and Buddhas that begin to make their appearance here because of his practice. And he's coming out of this state of a very deep absorption, a deep samadhi, and realizing there's still things that are missing in his practice, and realizing that the Buddha has this incredible command of the world and of all appearances. And so he wants to ask the Buddha about what the Buddha's method was to arrive at this ability of having this Buddha nature. And so I'm going to read just a few pieces of what he's speaking upon coming out of this, and the Buddha is now present. And he spoke these words: a large assembly of gods, humans, yakshas, Gandharvas have gathered here in accordance with their infinite aspirations. What is the practice of the bodhisattvas? You are the protector of the worlds, the illuminator, moon of speech. As I beseech you, please give teaching in the step-by-step fashion. When common people hear the qualities of supreme awakening, they become inspired and endeavor for awakening. And this is important to me because this is what I try to do with people, is to try to have them hear that the qualities of the Supreme Awakening. Now, I am not one to say, okay, these are the ultimate list of the qualities of Supreme Awakening, but I'm there to kind of like, as a tour guide, move you through and going, okay, we have this practice, but a little bit more is this practice here. And so to give you an inspiration to move further towards an awakening. And that's very, very important. So what he's doing is he's asking for the common people to hear the qualities of the Supreme Awakening so they can be inspired and endeavor for awakening. And that's what you're doing here, is trying to get this kind of an inspiration. My job is to try to, as best as I can, provide you week to week quality presentation of the Dharma that is calculated to lead to your interest in this awakening. With faith in the supreme qualities of awakening, I ask you, who have perfected all good qualities, master of the infinite, do you know my mind? Other than the victorious one, who could be my witness? Gods and humans are thirsting for the qualities of the victorious ones. Please explain, delineating the practices of the 10 powers. You possess the supreme qualities and have qualities of awakening. You know the great ways of the renown and beauty. Please explain. And I'm going to kind of cut through this because he goes on for quite a while in terms of asking him this, but I'll pick it up here. I ask you not out of attachment to the pleasures of existence, or because I am swayed by objects. I cherish the elixir of the victorious one. So he's saying, I cherish this whatever you're taking to become a Buddha. I cherish that. Whatever your method was, you know, this is what I cherish. So please, quickly, teach me about the practice of the 10 powers. Now, the practice of the 10 powers is not something that we practice, or nor is he seeking that as, I want to be powerful and I want to have these abilities and these powers. I'm not going to go through the powers and just say that these are super mundane powers of being able to understand things. One of them is to understand the mind of others. And so that's kind of what he's talking to him and saying, how do you do that? You know, how do you understand this? And so then it says, the Blessed One then spoke to the Bodhisattva, Pramodya Raja. Excellent, Pramodya Raja, excellent. I possess the absorption of elucidating the way of all phenomena. Now, I'm going to stop there because this is in italics. And he's saying that this is an absorption. So we say, well, what is an absorption? The absorption is not something that we can talk about in words so much as it is an experience, a realization. Who is realizing this realization? There isn't a life and being or an ego that's realizing it. It is just simply the experience of mind being mind, without the idea of the self and the idea of any kind of a duality of perception from subject and object. So this absorption is just simply when you sit and you meditate and there's no you there. This is the beginning. This is this absorption that we see. And he's talking about elucidating the way of all phenomena. So elucidating is you could say explaining the way of all phenomena. And what do we know about the way of all phenomena? Anybody want to venture a response to that? Yes, Sam.
Hey, Gilbert. Just to clarify before I answer, you asked what the nature of all phenomena is, correct?
Yes.
That the nature of all phenomena is emptiness.
Okay, that's one thing. Anybody else? What is the way of all phenomena? The key word here is way. Yeah. Yes, Eon.
That they're all created by the mind.
They're all created by the mind. We're another step closer. What is the way? These are not wrong answers. I just want you to think about this, because if you get to this point, you have to know what they're talking about. So it'll make sense when you go through this. So the way of all phenomena also is pratika samappada. The way of all phenomena is just mind. So all phenomena is not separate from mind. It's empty. Cause and conditions, they never fail. And so when we see things in this way, we see that this is the way of all phenomena. Elucidating it then is the skillful means of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva to be able to explain that to the common people, using that common people because that was the word that was used by this Bodhisattva to say what we are. But he's saying this absorption. So when you're sitting in meditation, it's just this way. You just sit. There's no you there, but it doesn't mean that the mind is blank. Many, many things arise in the mind from external factors of maybe people, if you're meditating in a retreat, people coughing, birds going by, car horns, whatever. And then also all of the information that's coming via the consciousness and all of these images that are arising, we understand where they're coming from. We understand that it is not us that sees them. We understand that which wants to step forward and make a claim that this is my thought, my problem, my victory, my this or my that is also an appearance. That is the way of all phenomena, that even that semblance of a life and being is created by the mind as well. And so it's important that we see things in this way. So we continue on. When bodhisattvas possess that absorption, they attain those qualities. So he's saying, when you really can go deep into this, those kinds of 10 powers will be self-evident because they're part of the self-nature of mind. Furthermore, they perfect the 121 perfections. They attain 84,000 absorptions and 84,000 dharanis. Now, dharanis are kind of like mantras or statements that are being made for protection of the mind. And so we're not going to list all the 84,000 dharanis tonight. I don't think I'd be able to make it through half of them. But in any case, they realize expert ways of engaging in the conduct of all sentient beings, and they quickly awaken to the unexcelled, complete, and perfect Buddhahood. Pramode Raja, what is the absorption called elucidating the way of all phenomena? Good question, right? It is. This is very simple. This is like so simple how he says this. It is doing exactly what one says. It is saying exactly what one has done. It is purifying the body, purifying the speech, purifying the mind. It is the wish to benefit. It is being endowed with love, not relinquishing compassion, not pursuing pleasures, pursuing the Dharma, ensuring that the faith is not wasted, and practicing in accordance with one's pledges or vows. It is being expert regarding language. It is liberating sentient beings, practicing well-considered deeds, not having bodily cravings, and having an unwavering mind. Now, this goes on for quite a while, but you get an idea of what he's talking about. There's like 500 that are listed here. And I can't go through all of them. And if I just read them, I think you would suffer from a fatigue of just listening to me reading those. But I think you get an idea in terms of this is that when we talk about this, it is in the action of the practice that enables one to have this this way of all phenomena, because it is engaged. It is engaged not from a dualistic viewpoint, because it's saying, you know, these things are happening, but they're not dualistic. And but they are the qualities of a Buddha or a Bodhisattva in terms of how we engage. And if we engage in this kind of a sincere way, that we do exactly what we say we're going to do, that we say what we did and not embellish it or whatever, or own up to whatever we did is my fault, you know, type of a thing, not necessarily saying it's my credit, you know, I did this, as much as making sure we own up to everything that we've done, and purifying the body, purifying the speech, purifying the mind. This purifying is done in the actions of a Buddha by way of the vows, and that in terms of how we do this, that is a being endowed with love, which is metta, and then the next one is karuna, not relinquishing compassion, not pursuing pleasures, pursuing the Dharma instead, ensuring that faith is not wasted, and practicing in accordance with one's pledges here. I would interpret that to be vows, that we make these vows. And so all of these are things that we do in terms of our practice. It's very, very simple. We don't need to be a Buddha Dharma scholar to understand what he's saying. It's just straightforward. It's very, very clear what we should do and what we should not do. And we know that, you know, and so we hold up that donut, you know, and we look at it, and do we eat it, or do we create a craving for that donut, or whatever vice or attraction or habitual patterns that are coming up? Or do we go, if I do this and I derive too much pleasure from this, then I will have you know, a problem, because I will create a craving for this in the future. But then when we are pure of mind, then we are aware that these kinds of things do arise in the mind, and we're clear about it. We know what's happening there, and that is the purification, when the mind does not move towards those kinds of habitual things that are happening. So from here on, I'm just going to touch on a few of these, because of the fact that there's just so much to do, and I don't want to spend 10 classes going through this. I just want to give you a feeling for how we practice in this elucidating of the way of all phenomena is just simply pratika samapada, how everything works, how everything is connected, how if we disengage from certain things and engage our vows instead, how this is a purification of the mind right in that very, very moment. Let's see. not harboring preconceptions regarding sentient beings, not harboring preconceptions regarding entities, cutting through grasping, demolishing attributes. It is immutable equipoise, immutable meaning unchanging state of equanimity or equipoise. The constant pursuit of wisdom, giving up mundane conversation and seeking super mundane conversation. Very interesting. You go, what? What does that mean? You know, giving up. What do you think that means? Giving up mundane conversation and seeking super mundane conversation. Anybody know what that might be referring to? Nobody? Yes, Tori.
Taking a guess, not gossiping, but instead helping people maybe pass on the Dharma.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it, like Shifu used to say, he says, you know, I don't like to talk. And they go, but Shifu, you talk all the time. And he said, yes, because you guys ask me questions. But if I had my way, I wouldn't talk. And so the thing is the super mundane, seeking super mundane conversation is just this, where it is okay to talk about things as long as we're not pontificating, or I'm not pontificating, trying to say this is the, you know, whatever, to make myself look smarter or scholarly or whatever. But if there's an interest of people that want to excel in their practice, to elevate their practice, this is a super mundane conversation, because we're talking about things that are the affairs of the mind. And in this, then there's not a problem with this. Otherwise, if we went around like monks with a vow of silence, nobody would ever get anything. But the super mundane conversation, such as reading the sutras or talking about the sutras, this is good. I'm not saying that you can't talk to people. I think it's more along the lines, I think that when we begin is like Tori, where we don't engage in mindless prattle or gossip or things of that nature, or talking about silly things. You know, you still can function. You can still ask people, you know, who won this game or what happened or whatever. It's all right. You know, you don't have to be so restrictive, but the idea is moving towards the conversation, such as what you're in here for, is this is something of a benefit to you and a benefit to others. So this is how we begin to do it. And again, this is essentially elucidating the phenomena, saying what is something that's wholesome and what is unwholesome. Unwholesome thoughts are ones that create attachments and habitual patterns. Wholesome thoughts are ones that don't, but we take a look at it. And the only thing we can say in terms of wholesome with an exclusion is that if one creates an interest in practicing, even though it creates a habitual pattern, it's a wholesome pattern to practice. Okay. Impeccable mindfulness. So this term mindfulness has been one in which for too long it has lost its real meaning, and it's turned into this mindfulness of what I refer to as making sure, you know, you open somebody's door up, or you help them with boxes, or you do this or you do that. But this idea of this impeccable mindfulness, all of those things come in naturally when we do it. But this impeccable mindfulness means that moment to moment, we maintain in the present moment an idea of what is happening, what is appearing, what is it via body, speech, and mind that needs to be done next. And it is in this way that we take care of the environment, we take care of all sentient beings with this impeccable mindfulness. If we do it simply because we want to look like we're mindful or caring, then it's worthless. But if we do it because we feel that this is something that we automatically should do without thinking about I should do it or not, just simply respond naturally, this is impeccable mindfulness. Again, I'm just picking out some of these because there's so many of them, but I wanted to kind of give you a feeling for it, because then you get an idea of how to practice, irregardless of whether I mention them all or not, but you get a feel for what the practice is. It is the correct engagement in actions, accomplishment in conduct, knowledge of the world, and a firm conviction in karma. All of this is mindfulness. All of that refers back to this impeccable mindfulness with the understanding about this firm conviction in karma. Even though I'm always saying that karma does not exist, to the sentient being, it does exist. To the advancement of a sentient being, or for the awakening of a sentient being, the practitioners must know how karma works. And it's not just, a tit for tat, but there's all sorts of other things that come in, which are called associative factors that are mentioned, for instance, in the Abhidharma or the Dharma Dharmata Vibhaga Sutra, where there's different things coming in, not just a single source producing this, but they're all associative factors that come in. And it is our mind that enables us to see further than just simply this, I hit you, you hit me, I give you $1, you give me $1. It's more than that. And we see it so much more clearly, and we see the situation of family members, and we see the situation of the parents and the grandparents, and we see how all of these things come to this point in this moment, and what will happen when they become grandparents, and what will happen in the future to the new generations. All of that is this firm conviction in the Dharma, which enables us to use these 10 powers to see into the future. You're not going to get that tomorrow, okay? So don't worry about it. It's just something that you see how the Buddha mind works, okay? This is kind of reads in the wrong way. It is giving up lack of faith. It's, to me, I would say it's not losing faith, being highly motivated, setting one's mind on Buddhas, teaching, flourishing, rejoicing in the merit, supplicating the Buddhas, paying homage to those worthy of offering, and expressing praise. All of those things are things that we do. And we should keep them at the forefront in terms of our mind and our practice. All of these things are things that enable us to understand, why do we do it? It's not because we want to cater favor with a Buddha or a Bodhisattva or a teacher or whatever. What we want to do is just abide. I shouldn't say the word abide, but maintain this mind, in the present moment, this Buddha mind, this perception of seeing things as they are. And so all of these will naturally arise in mind. It is being free from pride, being insatiable regarding the roots of virtues, being constantly diligent, not giving up on one's pursuits, but ensuring their completion, being magnanimous in the world with respect to deeds performed according to causes and conditions, and not forsaking the requisites. It is not postulating a single metaphysical ground and not clinging to the idea that this alone is true. And it continues on. But the thing here, I think, is important that after I give lectures, I kind of search for those times when myself arises in the lecture, and trying to say, next time I have to be more diligent, not let Gilbert arise or ego arise, or to let emotion arise in terms of this. And in everything that I do, I see that going forward, and in retrospect, as what I've done in my past conducts, it is something that's very, very important. And it keeps us from building up this idea of pride. Pride is a very difficult thing, and sometimes it comes in the side door, where it's cloaked in some kind of a how would you say it, entitlement of, and we have to be careful because people may not understand your words or your sentiments, and oftentimes that happens. But we have to be careful to make sure that we too are free from that kind of a pride, and this idea of being insatiable for the roots of virtue is very, very important for us to reflect this Buddha deportment in everything that we do, rather than showing the idea of a self, or any kind of a shading where the self is the prime motivator of body, speech, and mind. We're constantly having to check that, and checking that then is the roots of virtue. Being constantly diligent, not giving up on one's pursuits, but ensuring their completion. And these are important, that we have to keep going and practice. And sometimes people will tell me, well, I used to practice this, and then I gave up, and then now I'm doing this. And some of them come back here. And I hope the people, that came from other schools, they will stay with this one, and that they will have the energy to see that everything led up to this point. It may be they might find other teachers or whatever along the way, and that's fine, but they have to understand that this is something that is of great value and interest that transcends the meaning of this particular samsaric world. It is harboring no anger toward the rational or irrational, not relying on the wealth of other groups, never failing to fulfill wishes, giving up pride, giving up anger, and conquering ignorance. It is not enjoying wealth, being content with bare necessities, but being content with bare necessities, abandoning worldly pursuits, not being displeased with not getting well, not becoming conceited at getting well, sharing whatever one obtains and not hoarding. There's people that I know that are very, very wealthy, and they wear their wealth very well. It's not something that they have to show and to flaunt, but there's no harm in them having the wealth. They don't cling to the wealth, and they utilize it for proper purposes. And if we look at Villa McCready was very wealthy person, but he never tired of presenting the Dharma. Because of his virtues, it was rewarded. I'm not saying that's a justification, for somebody to buy an expensive item or whatever. What I'm saying is that these things come in this way. Other people, they can be very, very wealthy and totally ignorant and suffering all the time. And not only that, but they want to make themselves even bigger and more wealthier. And if this person has this, they must have something better, something more expensive, or whatever it is. They wear their wealth very poorly. And so we have to see that what the true wealth is this Dharma. And one of the things that I saw about Shifu in the very first retreat was that I was watching him when we were doing the sharing part, and he was there in front of the group, and he had been playing with these little M&M peanuts that were on a dish, and I saw it as a just like an analogy or a metaphor for what he was doing, as if those M&Ms were these precious jewels that he had, and he was offering them to us, and it was all for our taking. And the more that he offered these to us, the more the bowl filled with more jewels for others to pick up, and you could pick up as many as you want. He would freely give this wealth, but this is incredible wealth. This is a wealth so far beyond any kind of diamonds or emeralds or rubies or sapphires or pearls, whatever. This was an incredible wealth. And when one is possessed with this wealth, I shouldn't say it in that way of saying possessed, but is awakened to this wealth, there's just the interest in sharing that with others. This is the true wealth. And I offer it to all of you, just as Shifu offered it to me. And as he's offering it to me, I understood, as he was constantly reminding me, that this is something that I offer to others. The more I look down, the more in the bowl I see so many precious jewels, so many wonderful jewels of great wealth that I freely offer to you, so that you will freely offer to others. This is how it works. And so when we see it in this way, we're not filled with pride, but we're filled with a conviction that we want to practice for the benefit of others, to try to bring others to the practice, to say, even if I got just this little insight, this little realization or epiphany or awakening, it's not bad. I freely offer it to others, and I exhort them to exceed whatever realizations I may come by, that I truly wish that they will exceed those. And I will do everything in my power to make that happen. This is our faith. We can't lose this faith. We can't lose this virya, this energy to do things. This is what this is all about. He's naming all these different things, but it's coming down to what we're doing in the present moment. We continue on. Let's see where I'm at. Okay. I haven't gotten through hardly any of these, but we'll continue on. It is in accepting negative words from others, guarding one's words, being clear-minded, encouraging those who are rational, not following those who are irrational, and practicing sustained inquiry. There is a whole lot right here in this sentence. It is a lifetimes of practice. Accepting negative words from others. No, it belongs to them, not to us. the moment that we make it something that we have to counter, then it belongs. Otherwise, it's just absorbed in the mind. Where is it going to hit? It's not going to hit anything. It's just comes in, okay, that's fine. It's very difficult. It's very difficult because the ego, even the subtle ego, sometimes can get in the way and create a frustration or anger or whatever, with having words that are perceived to be negative going towards our way. And then guarding one's word. This is something that's very, very important. There was one, I forgot the name of the famous writer, but he said that I often regretted what I said to others, but I rarely regretted what I didn't say to others. And it's important because it's like saying that you learn to bite your tongue. But if you just come out and you say things quickly without filtering them, then you may make yourself feel good and you may harm the other people, but at what state? So sometimes it's better for us to endure, to have patience and to have understanding. This is not easy to do, but we have to practice in this way. And then being clear-minded. Clear-minded is not being susceptible to the emotional lures of habitual patterns in that are occurring in the consciousness, whether they're anger or lust or desire or whatever. We have to maintain a clear mind. We have to combat ignorance. So we have to stay awake. When we don't do that, then we have a default setting. The default setting is just simply abiding by whatever habitual patterns are there all the time. And it's very difficult for us to make headway in the samsaric world with that, because all it's doing is guaranteeing we're coming back for another session of suffering. Encouraging those who are rational. So when people, they say things, they make sense, that they're practicing well, you encourage them. And that you don't follow the people who are irrational. Hey, why don't we go down and, and whatever vice it is that they want you to be lured into. No, thank you. I don't need that. No, so you don't follow those people. Oh, come on, what are you, a chicken, or you're to this or that? No, it just, you choose not to do that. And practicing sustained inquiry. This is very interesting. What does this mean? Practicing sustained inquiry. It is you constantly looking into everything that you see. You're aware of it. You're using the mind to the fullest potential. When we use the mind in an awakened way, the awareness of the mind is limitless. And it enables us to see so much more than what appears in the projection, in the mind's environment, wherever we're at, whatever we're doing. We see that, but we don't really understand it. We just watch it like we're watching some kind of a movie, rather than understanding that all of this stuff is created by the mind. And we are inquiring into that to see, what is happening, the inquiry to say, if I say this, if I do this, if I think this will happen. There's a sustained inquiry to be aware, to be awakened of what's going to happen or what is happening in the present moment. It's very, very important. We have to stay awake. We can't just sleepwalk through life. This is the clear mind awareness. This is liberation. You don't have to wait, to get a degree in Buddhism or whatever. Just in this moment, there's liberation. right now. Okay. It is not giving up on meditative seclusion, not leaving the wilderness, always practicing the ascetic virtues, being inspired by emptiness and not being satisfied with things, not fixating on aggregates, subduing the elements, not reifying the sense sources, not revering objects, giving up air, attaining mental stability, abiding in the abodes of the Noble One, having a mind free from craving and yearning, attaining the level of being worthy of offerings, and completely purifying karmic conditioning. There's so much there. You can make 10 classes just simply on what is there, and all of this is elucidating the phenomena. Where are we at? Okay. It is generosity whereby you do not take on karmic ripening. It is, and then this generosity is just simply generosity in the present moment. We're not trying to say, if I do this, if I erect so many stupas to the Buddha, what virtue is it, or what merit is there? We don't do it for those purposes. It is discipline whereby you have no arrogance. It is the patient, and the discipline is something very interesting, because sometimes people can become too disciplined, and too disciplined to a fault, that they have a very narrow idea of discipline, where you don't fit in their idea of discipline. So it's arrogance, because they say, oh, you should do this or you should do that. But it's very, very narrow, and there's an arrogance there in terms of trying to do that. But if we're disciplined just simply to be disciplined in terms of things, it's hard for us, because to some people it's very easy. To other people, it's not so easy to be so disciplined, so neat, so clean in everything that we do. But we aspire to this kind of a discipline, but we don't hold others and say, look at them, they're so bad, they're this or that. No, because there's portions of our lives where we're not as disciplined as them, perhaps, in whatever they're doing. And that's an arrogance. So we have to be careful about that. I'd be the first one to say that, I still have a sense of self. I try to identify it, and it comes up less and less and less frequently and less intensely, but nevertheless, it still manifests, if I let it do it. So I have to maintain a discipline in terms of practice and clarification of the mind to subdue these kinds of patterns, of these habitual patterns. Okay. It is patience where you have no divisive thoughts. It is diligence in which your efforts are not squandered. It is concentration whereby you do not take rebirth. And it is insight whereby you do not squander life. So this insight tells us, don't waste this life. Shifu used to always say, we only have a finite amount of breaths that we take. We don't know when the breaths are going to stop. So we don't waste this life. This life is precious, especially listening to this Dharma. It is something that will help you. And even if I was wrong about all of this, wouldn't you still be a better person? in practicing in the manner in which I'm telling you to practice. It can't be bad. It is not remaining in samsara, not objectifying nirvana, mastering liberation, not being attached to nirvana, and resting in certainty. Now, when it talks about it is not remaining in samsara, it doesn't mean that one doesn't come back to samsara. But it means that the term samsara is a term for an illusion, a phantom, a dream. We can enter the illusion, the phantom, and the dream, knowing that is an illusion, a phantom, and a dream. We can do that. So it's not saying we're going to say, okay, we made it through, we're done, we're going to nirvana. That's why it said, about nirvana, not being attached to nirvana. So it's clarifying that, mastering this liberation. So the mastering of liberation is how we can become free from all the attachments, vexations, entanglements in the world. And so in doing that, we're not trying to objectify nirvana where we go, oh, I want to go to nirvana. No, it's like looking at it as it is and understanding that we don't remain in samsara. Doesn't mean we don't come back. It's just that we choose to see through nirvana, through samsara, and actually nirvana as well. It is praising novices, mid-level practitioners, and seniors due to their proper understanding. I am so happy to see people, whether they're senior practitioners or they're new, coming in, and they have an interest in this practice. They have an interest in studying, and each of them in their way gets it. And so to me, I am so pleased to pass on this, what they say, proper understanding. It is free from animosity, pacifying disputes, praising peace, endeavoring in the accumulations, and having equal concern for those who are one's friends and those who are not one's friends. This is a tough one, but I've, by and large, have been able to overcome this. This is one that was probably the hardest one for me to say, okay, I care about these, but these people, pardon my language, they can go to hell. And being able to transmit to them merit and metta and karuna, there's a liberation there. It's a wonderful liberation that frees you from the shackles of samsara, and it's not easy for us to do that because the ego is so strong, especially if somebody has done something that we consider to be very, very contrary to our interest or harmful to us. But we have to let those things go. Okay, let me see. Almost. There's just too much. There's too much more to do. So I'm going to stop there. It just goes on, and all of what is being said here is the roots of the practice. I mean, it's so much. I can't believe the wealth of this particular sutra in terms of that. What I wanted to give you was just a feel for it, so that you understand from your heart what the practice is. It's right here now in this present moment. You choose to do things you already know. In your mind, you already know right from wrong. You know that this is good, this is bad. Whatever it is, you can feel it already in the heart. You are not navigating this world blindly anymore. You have already awakened to causes and conditions. That's the hardest part. And now then, when we awaken to the Buddha nature, then everything is seen very, very clearly. So I hope that this will help you and inspire you to practice more. All of this has been something that's been ruminating in my mind for the past week, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to present it to you in a way, and it's almost ceaseless in terms of the examples that they're giving as to how to practice. It's absolutely an incredible wealth of how you do this, how you elucidate this, and it's absolutely amazing. So thank you for listening. I'll take questions. No questions today, huh? Yes, Harry.
Hi, Gilbert. Thanks again. I had never heard this sutra before. It's really something. The last thing that you said really hit me about the relationships with friends. So I had just come across, there's a thing called the 6 Examples of Illusion that teach impermanence from Milarepa. So just the one about friends, it says, take a good look now at your circle of friends, impermanent like the crowd at a fair. Friends will certainly part. This makes me sad. So, but what's interesting is what he says next. He says, have you improved your relations, Richungpa? When I think of this, I remember the divine Dharma. So this is where he's seeing this, the fading away, but that's not changing his attitude. And I think that's really very, clear and impressive.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because what he's doing is showing that there's an impermanence to everything. But what matters is not the impermanence aspect of it, but it is what we do in the meantime, in the present moment, and we analyze how we improve our friends' lot, and the friends are one in which we could say is really other sentient beings, not just simply your close friends, but he's using it in a way that people can kind of relate to their friends and say, did you really help your friend? Or, was it something that you, when they needed help, did you turn away from them? Or did you, encourage them to drink, or did you encourage them to gamble, or whatever? All of these things, and they're saying, what did you do here? These people were gone. Did you leave an impression with them? And I think that's what this particular sutra is talking about, is that how we engage in the world, and there's an incredible deep wisdom here that's expressed in the mundane, and it's so clear, it's so beautiful, and what this one does, Harry, it reminds me a lot of how Shifu lectured, especially general lectures, and what attracted me to his Dharma was this naturalness of everything, and so matter of fact and clear and simple. In this mundane is reflected the super mundane. And it's amazing when we see things like that. So yeah, I think that's a good and kind of a parallel teaching there. So good to see you again too.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Sam.
Hey, Gilbert. Thank you for your lecture. It's been a rough go at it the last couple of weeks, and getting to hear you talk Dharma for the first time in a few weeks too is it's kind of like the medicinal herbs chapter in Lotus Sutra. So thanks for the medicine. But I wanted to ask you a question not pertaining to this sutra, but to the Surangama. In the first volume, the wiping out the 8 consciousnesses and the skandhas to reveal the unreality of ego, Buddha's talking to Ananda, and he's using like a metaphor of they're in the hall in the park, and you can see the trees in the park outside of the windows and the doorways. But if someone is looking out of these windows, they may not see the Buddha that is inside this hall. And then he goes into talking to Ananda about, and I may be misquoting this metaphor a little bit, but then that's where he goes to ask Ananda if the mind is in the body. And then Ananda tries to say, yes, yeah, it must be in my sense organ. And the Buddha says that's groundless. And then he says that the mind must not be in the body, and the Buddha says that's groundless. Now, I understand that the Buddha is pointing to what can't be conceptualized, and it's pointing to, but I was a little lost on the metaphor of like, they're inside this hall looking out the windows and doorways to the park, and one who is looking out at the park might miss the Buddha that is already inside. I feel like I get it, but I also feel a little confused. So I just wanted to bring that to you. Thank you.
It's a matter of the Buddha uses the perceptions of all eyes. Ananda's only using the perception of a sentient being. And so from his perspective, there's a duality there. From the Buddha's perception, there's no locus or locale of where this awareness is at. It is just the immediate awareness of all. And so from there, it could not miss that the Buddha is sitting in the hall, because it's clear that it's just this way. So all of the things that he challenges Ananda to find out where his mind is, including him having this ethereal idea later on as to that this must be the mind, this kind of ethereal one. And then the Buddha shouts at him, that's not your mind. And it shakes him because of the fact that that's the shaking up. I'm saying you have to let go of any kind of a semblance of a life and being or a personality or ego. All of these things are just shadows. And so, but mind is there, but it cannot be understood in a samsaric way. So that's where you need to kind of keep going with it and play with it. There's more challenges as you go along with that. But the whole process is read, reread, read. If you don't understand it, reread it again. Don't go forward, because you're not going to, don't think you're going to get it by going forward. Mm-hmm. You gotta back up and go, okay, let's see, it's like you're driving and then you miss the turnoff, right? And so you're driving and you think, well, I can just keep going this way, but you missed the turnoff. So how are you going to get there? You don't really know. So you need to back up and find out which fork of the road to go on. And that's the same thing with the Dharma, is don't expect that if you didn't understand what was on that page, that you're going to understand the next page. It's all foundational. Keep working on it. Good.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Yes. John, how are you?
Hello, Gilbert. Yeah. In terms of our practice, no matter what kind of method we use, it is important for us to keep mindful all the time. But I have a question for some people. Like for them, it's not simply those ordinary like wandering thoughts, but instead, what keeps coming up is some say trauma or say painful experiences in their past. And if those kind of experience keeps surfacing, how could they deal with that?
You're talking about memories from the past?
Yeah, especially those extremely painful ones.
The thing is that we see this world as it depends. Now, if we're dealing and we're addressing people that just something happened to them. Let's say somebody died in their family. You can't go up to them and say, well, everything's impermanent, so get over it. That's not using wisdom. But if it's something that was from the past, then we have to begin to let them know that this world is filled with good and bad, just like the one liturgy says, joy will not last. And so that too is a component of suffering, because we compare it to when things are adverse to us. So we understand that these things happen. We don't have to, as the Buddha said, try to find out who shot the arrow or why the arrow was shot. We just have to understand and get over whatever it is. To heal is more important than to try to exact revenge or try to explain the things that happened from the past. And that we let go of that. We understand that just this moment is the Buddha moment. And so we give people faith to stay in the Buddha moment, not to try to rehash all the memories of their life and try to, because some of them are so emotionally damaging and strong that it's difficult. The more that they hold on to these things, the worse it's going to be. I mean, there's so many different kinds of situations where that could happen, whether it's incidents of violence or whatever, child abuse, sexual abuse, whatever things come up in people's lives, loss of loved ones. We have to begin to let it go. It's not easy, but we use our compassion and try to, in that particular moment with that particular person, find the right Dharma to present to them. It's not like a cookie cutter thing where one Dharma will work for everyone. In doing this and doing it in a way in which you present it to them, you are mindful. For instance, a lot of times people, they lose a loved one, and so that's always happening, and people are saying, can you transmit some merit to them or whatever, or do something, or my parent died or whatever. But you find the way, the skillful means to help them. This is our heart that we try to use the best. And sometimes it's something very easy. Like I had one where I think the lady was 104 years old that recently passed. And so when I said to the people in her family, that this is something that this person lived a long life. So there must be so many good memories to remember about this person, that they've had a long, fulfilling life, and so that's an easy one. So the other ones are when people die tragically, or that there's something happened to a person, then you have to know how to use that as well. And probably the worst thing you can do, when people have something to say, oh, I know because this happened to me type thing. People really don't want to hear that. They want comforting words or words of faith. And so we have to find the way uniquely to that particular person, that we try to use our sincere Bodhi heart to reach them. And so it's something that when people have lost somebody, I never just do a cookie cutter thing and say, some kind words. It's specific that the mind's heart responds. And that's what's important, is that you have to find the way to do that can help the person in that moment, whether it's something that happened a long time ago or something recent. It's different. So you have to use your means of doing that. Little by little, you'll find the way to do that, depending on the situation. It's not easy, but people carry those things around, and it's kind of like the the poem of the rhyme of the ancient mariner, where the one person had shot this bird, the albatross, and he was on the ship and had to carry it around his neck for the whole trip, this dead bird, because he had killed it. And the bird was, when you see that, the mariners would say that was a good luck to see an albatross, because it meant you're getting closer to land. And the thing is that we have to help people so that these bad experiences don't become an albatross to them, that they carry with them.
Mhm.
And so you have to take the time to talk to the person, go through the experience with them, and then you can put it down, or they can put it down. But it's this matter of you caring about that, caring and taking the time to talk to them, that will make the difference. Okay. So best of luck with that. Yes, Tori.
Thank you so much, Gilbert, for sharing today's Dharma, because this is I find it very useful in terms of dealing with my own habitual tendencies. So I really appreciate it. And I have questions about what this sentence, or not like the whole complete sentence, but it's saying, it is concentration whereby you do not take rebirth. So is the rebirth talking about the reincarnation? So we're not reincarnating without, or like a clear mind, and be able to control that reincarnation. So be clear about coming back here to deliver sentient beings, but more like reincarnated out of habitual tendencies or other reasons.
Yeah, it's a matter of that when you come back because you choose to, out of the power of the vows, not from an ignorance that you come back simply to discharge whatever karmic forces that you accumulated from before, but it's something that you're coming back with the idea that this world is an illusion, but there are people that are suffering in this world. Even though it's a dream, it still matters. And that's the real subtlety and esoteric aspect of Buddha mind that is not easy for us to fathom. Like, why would we do that? But it is that which is what we call Buddha nature, this interest in the suffering of others, even though those others are just a dream, but it matters. And it's something in which we have to balance from the idea of nihilistic and saying, well, since they're a dream, it doesn't matter anyway, to that we see them as some fixed person, or that we see, more importantly, the Buddha as some kind of a deistic or godly person. It isn't in this way. It's very, very subtle how we do that. And it is that awakening that enables us to harness this power of the mind, to understand that everything's created by the mind, including this dream. And so we have the ability to come back into the dream by the power of our vows. And we come back, but with our eyes open, or soon to be open once we come in, and so you try your best to do this, rather than, that's what they're saying, you don't cling to this idea of nirvana, of like, I'm getting out of Dodge and I don't care, or I'm going to Pure Land or whatever. The idea of the humanistic Buddhism, as interpreted by Master Sheng, is different than some of the other humanistic Buddhism that was there. It's much more profound and deeper, let's say, than from, as an example. I'm not meaning to say anything bad about them, because they do great work, but Sushi Foundation, the sushi?
Tzu Chi.
Yeah. So anyway, they have a humanistic Buddhism, but it kind of eschews any kind of supernatural or things super mundane, let's call it, not supernatural things. Whereas in the Dharma drum as espoused by Master Sheng, this humanistic Chan was one that understanding everything's created by the mind, that we have to change this place, and we see things in a certain way, and that it's more than just helping sentient beings, but we have this ability to come back here and to engage in this world, but with an awakened mind, which is different. And so this is very important, Tori, because it's that part that's very difficult for us to try to do it. It's like a tightrope walk where one side's nihilistic and the other one is this kind of like, okay, there is an entity there, but there really isn't an entity because it's a dream. But why would it make a difference for the Buddha to have an interest in that? That has to be realized. And that's a part that's very, very important in terms of seeing things. If we can do that, this can be an entry door for you in terms of looking at this and saying, how does this Buddha mind function? And we don't enter it by cogitation, by thinking about it, but by the contemplation and this absorption that's there, that was talked about in this sutra, but it does not separate from the samsaric experiences. It uses those samsaric experiences in order to practice, which is what one sutra said, that the Buddhas use the vexations of sentient beings to practice. You are already possessed of the Buddha mind. So you just need to use these vexations to practice, to see it clearly, to awaken to the fact that these things are binding you. Whatever it is, whatever desires, all of these things, they bind you. Once you recognize that, then you have a choice. You can choose to come back here to awaken others, or you can move on, let's say, to the Pure Land or whatever, or to nirvana. But the Mahayana heart brings us back. There's a point where it's not really a choice. It is just the awakening that brings us back. It isn't saying, oh, I choose, I'm going to do this versus that. The Mahayana heart is so strong, it says, you will return. Mind will return. In whatever iteration it manifests, it will return, because that's the way it is. So I'm talking about some things very interesting. Maybe you understand it, maybe you don't, but it should give you some cause for contemplation of what I'm talking about. It's very, very interesting. It's something that I was working on for quite a long time to try to fathom that. That's why I'm offering it up to you. Okay.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bo Lee.
Hi, Gilbert. I have a question. I'm currently in Mexico. So recently I started to practicing watching my thoughts. Before, what I try to do is just whenever I notice I have a thought, I go back to the present moment. And recently I started to actually watching my thoughts. And then I realized 90% of the time my thoughts are very negative. It's either judgment, fear, or self-criticism. And then I have to try really hard to tell myself, this is thoughts, this is not me, to like establish a little distance between me and my thoughts. But once I stopped trying really hard, I started to go with the thoughts. So it's not like a very relaxed awareness. It's like I need to try really, really hard to build distance with me and my thoughts. And most of the time, I lose track of that. I'm wondering, how can I do to be more aware of it and less affected by those thoughts?
Yeah. The process that you were doing was beneficial to you. The problem arose because you were holding the method like this. Okay. You have to hold it like this, very lightly, very like hold the method, back off from that, and it won't make a difference in terms of the production of thoughts, but it will enable the mind to be released from any kind of tensions that are created by looking at it, because you're going to see, the more that you practice, you're not going to see less thoughts. You're going to see more thoughts. Why was that? See, John's nodding his head, but it's true. It's true. People who are practitioners, you're going to see more thoughts. Why? Because your mind is now clarifying and you're aware of how many thoughts are there. That's why sometimes they refer to it as these effervescent bubbles that are coming up. So you're going to see more of them, not because you're practicing wrong, but because you're practicing right. When you're practicing right, you become more aware of all of these thoughts. It's okay. You back off. You back off. You hold it. And your mind is capable of seeing all these appearances in mind. Because before, what you were using was, you're using this mind. Are you computer oriented at all? Yeah. But anyway, it's like ones and zeros. Okay. If you understand that concept of ones and zeros. So when you're using the samsaric mind, everything is ones and zeros. Okay. It has to follow sequentially. But when you're using the Buddha perception, all ones and zeros appear simultaneously, all over. Not just the ones that are arising there, but the potentiality of thought that are called, Shifu used to call them ideas. And so these are all simultaneously being aware of by the mind. So in the beginning, it's like an onslaught of all of these thoughts that arise. It's okay. You're doing fine. You're exactly where you should be. Now all you have to do is back off and keep the mind calm. Keep the mind calm. In this midst of all of these thoughts, you are like in the eye of the hurricane. All of these things are swirling around, but they don't touch you. They don't touch you because you are not made of samsara. You are using your uncreated mind, your unborn mind to see these. They cannot touch you. You're the one that creates it all. So you have the ability to control that. You just don't understand that. You got to the point where you have all of these thoughts coming in, and it's good. It's good. Now all you got to do is just back off. Let them all come. Let them come, as many of them as they want to come. It doesn't matter. They can't touch you because your mind is purified at that point. The very fact that you're seeing so many of them is because you're practicing in the proper way. And by doing this, you just let them manifest. They can manifest as much as they want until they tire out. You know, they come up, you know, donut, you know, you want the donut? No. You sure? And it comes up for lesser and lesser and smaller until finally it just gives up because it loses its mind power. You give the mind power to the method. We don't give it to the appearances that are arising in mind. they can come and go and go and go and go, and then finally they're gone. You don't have to worry about it. No, they cannot touch you. Okay, so don't get frustrated, don't get confused. Your question is very well timed at this point so that you can understand how to do this. This is going to change you because you've already gotten to a level where you now beginning to see what they say, a myriad of thoughts and ideas. It's okay, let them come whatever they want to. They have no effect on you whatsoever. Okay, try that, and then next time we do it next week, let me know how it's working. Okay, so check back in. All right, you're going to do good. The very fact that you got to there is important. Okay, that's when you all of a sudden you see how many that are there. Okay, I think we're unless there's one last question, we're almost done. No questions? Oh, okay. Shloka.
Hi, thank you so much for these classes. They're really wonderful. I've been trying to figure out how to articulate my questions well, and I can't, so here goes. I guess when you think about the suffering in the world, all the suffering that is, I guess, how do you separate compassion from sadness? And I guess where do you keep drawing from? Keep drawing to have this infinite compassion, but at the same time not let it affect you?
It's a very legitimate question. True compassion is an aspect of the Buddha nature. It isn't a compassion of sentimentality. It has an interest in the suffering, in samsara, but it is not one that that has this humanistic component to it. And I hate to say that in a way in which it may sound wrong, because it's great compassion. It's not small compassion, not conditional compassion, where we say, all of these sentient beings, they died. All right. How many of those can we take on the news, But then let's say in current events, Ukrainians, they got bombed by the Russians, and the Russians killed 16 people. Oh, that's horrible. That's so horrendous. And they said, great strides were made by the Ukrainians who killed 40 Russian troops. And we feel happy about that because we're conditioned to see things in this way, in this kind of a sentimentality. But to someone with compassion, is not also that a tragedy? The causes and conditions that come there to do things. Who is the victor? So it's a different point of view from Buddha perception to see things and say that all of those things are there. From that to the very fact, if you squash the bug, a spider or whatever, are you not mindful that you took a life? Maybe it may seem insignificant to us, but there's not a bug that that loses its life because of me, that I'm not aware that a life was taken. And because all of those are still sentient beings. So when we look at things, we see it from a greater heart. And we have the interest, we want to stop this madness in this world, this horror in this world. The way we do that is by trying to awaken people to say, this is madness. How can you gain things by killing people, and by doing this and creating further and further sufferings in the world? And it's not an easy thing for us to do. You know, we have learned revenge is what we do. And if on this particular day we lost a lot of people in the 9/11 incident, and so we had some quote unquote closure by killing Osama bin Laden. Did we really accomplish anything with that, or created more hatred with that? No, this is madness in this world. And so when we see things, we have to see it clearly, but remember that this kind of compassion is unconditional. It's something that we look at and we see, you know, how we do things. So in any case, that hopefully that'll help you. And you can ask next time as well if you still have some questions about it. But it is a good question, very, very outstanding question. So you did good. Okay, I think that's about it. Cynthia, did you have something that you were sending out? I saw something about autopilot.
Oh, that's just the automated transcription.
Oh, okay. So it's just saying it's finished, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, no problem. All right, then. I think that's it for today. I will have one more coming up next week. So we'll see what we do with that one. But I'm so happy that you all attended. Hopefully that you obtained some kind of a benefit from this. Keep practicing. Practice sincerely, moment to moment to moment. That's what we do. Okay. Amitofo. Take care.